Hi, I'm Alan Ross. I'm the managing editor of APC Media. We're here at the Doble Client Conference 2024 in Boston. And as usual, there are incredible numbers of thought leaders. And these are the interviews with both some of the leadership of Doble and with the thought leaders that are here from the client base and from many of the other people. Largest conference so far, 1,300 people. This is the interview with, we wanted to do a year ago with Matt Carrara. Matt is the president of Doble.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for inviting us here at the Doble Client Conference 2024 in the Omni Hotel. It's been a delight already, but I interviewed you about a year ago.
Yes.
And you looked at me like you were a deer in the headlight, like, what are you going to ask me? But it was a great interview. We talked about a lot of things. But you've had a year. What have you learned that you didn't know then that you are allowed to tell me?
Well, it was interesting. You and I met, I think it was at Distributech.
Yeah,
when we did the interview. And I was 3 months into the role, new to the industry. Very nervous about what you were going to ask me and how I was going to respond.
Yeah.
But my main focus for the last 12 months was learn about the business and the people first,
right.
and then focus on the industry.
Yeah.
So the first 6 months was really an internal learning for me.
Yeah.
Getting to know the people, getting to know the culture. And at the end of the day, the last 6 months, I've been really focused on learning of what's going on in the industry. So as I'm driving the company into the future, I know what I need to focus on as a leader.
Well, I can tell you from knowing a lot of your people, especially some of your old timers that are the knowledge people at Doble. They like it. Whatever you're doing, they like it, and that's really important.
Yeah.
Because you were steering the ship. Doble, it wasn't founded by Dr. Doble like 100 years?
It was 100 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Our 100 years was last year, and then last year was the 90th for the client conference.
Yeah.
So a lot of history, a lot of legacy, a lot of knowledge.
Okay.
And
we're going to come back to the client conference at the end, but I want to get to something else. Okay.
Yes.
And I know I'm going to put you, because you said learn the people, learn the company, learn the industry. Okay. Now I'm going to assume you know enough about the industry, but our industry, the power industry, has gone through more change in the last 5 to 7 years than we have in 100 years beforehand.
Yes.
That brings us up to a point. What is that point? Where are we right now in the industry as you see it?
Well, I think where we are right now is that we know the infrastructure is a challenge, and we know there's a huge amount of demand that's going on the grid. One of the things that I spoke about at my opening yesterday was last year they had forecasted a demand for the grid for the next 5 years.
Right.
They came out at the end of last year, and it's 2 times the amount. So one of my messages yesterday was, you're driving budgets, OPEX, CAPEX, you're driving hiring practices, and the government is bringing down funding for utility companies, and all of a sudden you realize, I need twice as much. Yeah. So right now I think there's a little bit of a choke on the industry on funding, on components, on people, on how do we continue to grow and expand the grid.
Well, you mentioned something. The government is drawing down some of the government has really been pouring money into infrastructure, particularly in green infrastructure, right? And they brought it down to a point where that wind and solar is now cost effective in terms of generation, right? And it seems like now they're pulling out, and they're expecting private money to come in. So from that perspective, the good news is you have a perspective of other industries.
Yes.
So you bring some perspective that might be very helpful for where we are. Do you see capital coming into the industry that might make up that gap?
Well, we certainly see a lot of capital coming in, but going on, wind and solar, as you know, we have a group that is in that space right now.
Right.
And what we're finding is it's not about investment, it's not about money, it's the time for the permitting to take place.
Yeah.
So again, there's another chokehold in that area, but yes, a lot of the wind farms and solar farms are being handled and managed by private organizations. Right. Then they take them, they activate them, and then they sell them off.
Right.
But right now, it's the same challenge we see on the utility space. It's components, it's timing, and it's people.
Yeah. The one thing that you said, and I know that I interviewed somebody from DOE, and that challenge of permitting. DOE doesn't have the authority to do it because it's state, local. I mean,
exactly.
There's 50 different state regulators, right? And they all have a different way of looking at things. But that idea of getting people together to say, smooth out the permitting process, and you'll make this transition. We're still not there yet.
There's a graphic that I had seen last month that shows how long it takes for the money, once it's identified, to roll down to the organization.
Yeah.
It's 70 to 80 steps. and they can stop anywhere along the way. So
Yeah.
it's not, yes, there's all this money available, but it's not sitting in the people's bank accounts, organizations. It's still funneling through the process.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing we have to break.
72 steps?
Yeah.
Is that what
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. I get frustrated at 3, so I'm
exactly.
glad I'm not
Yeah.
doing that. So that's kind of where we are today. Now I got the harder question.
Yeah.
If I asked 10 different people this same question, I would get 17 different answers.
Yes, yeah.
Because halfway through they would change their answer. So here's the next one. Where do you see, as an industry, as a whole, you can focus on the utility industry, you can focus on big energy, where do you see the industry going over the next 5 to 7 years?
Well, I think the challenge is the same one we spoke about last year. It's what to do with the data. Because part of the issue is you have a group of individuals in the industry that are now retiring and moving on to the latter part of their either life or their career, and you have a bunch of new people coming in. So there's a big gap of knowledge between a lot of expertise and new people in the industry. And what we find a lot of is they're coming to us for training, for information. What can we do with all the data for them? Can we do the analysis for them? Yeah. So I think you're going to see a big migration to data, continuing, I'll say 1 to 5 years. But the challenge is someone needs to find a way to aggregate all of that data, which makes sense to the utility company, because we're being tasked with making the decision for them that they can then validate before they make a change or make an adjustment. So to me, it's data.
It's funny that I was at a Transformer Committee meeting, IEEE Transformer Committee meeting. This was years ago. And that idea of, hey, if we had more data, it was, it's different now because we're talking about massive amounts of data, AI, machine learning. Back then it was like, if we could do the data, and IEEE was trying to take data. Did you know that Doble was the only company that had failure data that they had collected for years? Everybody else collected condition data, but they didn't know if that transformer failed or was taken out of service because it was aging, because most of the utilities did it because it was aging, not because it failed. But the idea that it's not just the data, it's the data. It's the data.
It's the analysis of it. We have a side business, I'll say, or an inside business where people send us failed transformers. We do all the analysis for them based with using 100 years of data of what to look for and what we can get out of it. We have to find a way. Can we take all that, feed it into AI or feed it into some program, which then we can monetize for the customer? So the customers can then put in certain symptoms and it'll kick out, here's your issue, here's your problem, and your transformer's going to fail in the next year, you better order one today. So I think for us, that's where we're focused right now.
Okay, and you hit upon it. It's the data, the amount of data, AI and ML. Whenever anybody says, oh, we're using AI now, I say, no, they're saying AI now. We're not really using it because I don't think we fully understand it. We're publishing an article in our next issue, and it is about AI for the non-AI CEO. So I'm going to send that to you.
I'll take it.
It was done by an expert, by the way.
Well, if you remember last year at Distributech, it was all about data and software. No mention of AI. This year, walking through Distributech, I'd say every other booth
it was crazy.
Had an AI on it, and it was sort of the same thing we had seen last year. So it's new, and I think people have to start understanding how to use it.
What really struck me at Distributech was the number of, I would say, non-traditional people that were there, like Dell Computers. They had a big space. IBM, we did an interview with the head of IBM, and he's now suddenly they're doing a lot in the power industry. But a lot of non-traditional people for this industry were coming in because they are communications people, they're data management people, they're all trying to get a piece of the pie. With that said, there's ISO 55000 was developed to do a line of sight of assets for organizations, right? 10 years ago, I was doing, because I was the president of the Electric Power Reliability Alliance, so we were looking at ISO 55000 primarily for large industrials. We weren't doing it for utilities. However, the first company to try to do ISO 55000 was PG&E, so they did it on their G side, the gas side. They found over 200, I think it was 270 plus major online working gas component assets that they no longer had on their books.
Wow.
So think about that from a safety standpoint. Think about it from because they were written off. So the finance guys go, it's got no value. But you got that thing running pipeline stuff through
it's
there.
still going. Yeah.
So they decided not to do it on their electrical side. I think they were afraid to find out. But the idea that ISO 55000 is creating this demand for line of sight. So the CEO sees what he needs to see. This guy sees what it's kind of down that line. Doble plays a huge role in data that the CEO can see, but the engineer on the ground can see, right? Talk a little bit about that, because that's something that you guys are expert at, that other people are trying to be expert at.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the majority of the software that we sell, it's collecting points of data from our own equipment.
Right.
And that's collecting data around condition monitoring, transformer analysis. We have a great ability to do advanced transformer failure analysis through our software packages. We're not exactly at the CEO level yet, because there's still some ERP challenges around, can you take our data and put it on your ERP system? Yeah. So we're working on bridges for that. Yeah. And Dell happens to be a partner of ours that we use for testing as well. So we're trying to get into this sort of boardroom to field type of view. We're one step away from I would say the boardroom, but we do it more at the maintenance level and at the engineering level.
I can say this to you. They like pictures and charts and color.
Yes.
And what they don't like is red. So when they see red, they go, something's wrong, go fix it.
It's all red. Yeah.
So,
and they're looking at it differently. The person that's running the substation is looking at reliability. He's looking at downtime. The person in the boardroom is looking at one thing. What are the finances of it? So
you just said another word that I love, reliability, because I'm a reliability engineer, a member of the IEEE Reliability Society. And I like to think that I brought reliability into, because the first time I saw Doble use the word reliability was about a year after I used the word reliability. So I said, see, it must be a big deal now. But now reliability's kind of dropped a little bit. Resilience is a huge issue in the industry, because we've got all these events, fire, hurricanes. Even at a time when we shouldn't be having tornadoes, we have tornadoes whipping through the country. Reliability is about keeping the power on. Resilience is about get it back on, because the lights went out. Talk a little bit about how Doble is working on resilience for your clients.
Well, for us, it's the same message. It's around the data and the clarity of what's happening now and what could happen in the future. A lot of times, you look now at delivery of transformers. A transformer goes down, you're waiting 2 to 3 years because of backlogs to get one in. We're now telling them that transformer is going to fail in 2 years. So now they can sort of start ordering on an earlier time frame. So resilience is only as quick as the equipment that you can put in to replace it. And right now we know we have a chokehold on that. The backlogs for equipment bushings and bushing taps and transformers are years. So we have to do a better job of giving them advance notice of a failure so they can react quicker, instead of reacting the day it happens. And that's a weather event, that's a power outage, that is an unforeseen circumstance.
And it's also taking care of the ones that you got, because if I can't get it for 3 years, you need to do something to make sure that now that could be load, and you don't overload it, but now you got to share. There's a lot of ways that they can mitigate it, but it is get more life for your transformers. Austin Energy has I think the average power transformer in their network was like 48 years, and they made a decision to go after a 75-year life of their transformers, because they said, do what you need to do to make sure that asset lasts 75 years. They were built to last 20. They did last 50, and now you're asking, that's like trying to get the 1912 DeSoto to last.
To still be drivable,
to be drivable. We're not the Cubans with cars, and we've abused this equipment, and now we got to stop abusing it. But part of the change that's going on, and this is my last question for you, is you're here at the Doble Client Conference. I know that you know everything that everybody was doing, okay? Because you needed to know. Okay. And what was think about internally? What did you say to your people about why you wanted this client conference to be? I won't say different, but you got more people here than any other client. How many people?
We actually, I just looked at it before we came on, over 1,300 people came this year.
That's huge. Yeah. So
And that's the biggest we've had ever in the history
ever
of the show.
And so there's a reason, and so you must have a message for what you wanted internally your people to focus on. Just give me a quick rundown.
So the quick message for me was getting the people that attend this show and those that don't attend the show to come next year, that we're a trusted partner.
Yeah.
You know, we're helping the utility system get through this journey. We're giving them the data and the information and the testing they need to secure and make sure that the asset is reliable and resilient. But at the end of the day, the message was, we want to be your partner. And we've done a really good job this year. This is, like I said, the biggest show ever. And at the end of the day, people are coming to this show to learn.
Yeah.
So we're pushing the learning, the conferences, the training. There's a lot of collaboration, over 642 specific clients in the utility industry, sitting in sessions, exchanging ideas, talking about how to storm preparedness, how to react to a transformer that goes down, how to react to another situation, be it domestic terrorism or maybe someone put a virus in the system. Mm-hmm. All of that conversation is going on here. So for us, we're hoping the show gets bigger and bigger, and we want to show that Doble's 100 years of data and experience can help them as we move forward. So for us, the Doble message is trusted partner.
Is there cross collaboration with some of the utilities at some of these events when you have, are
yes.
they being able to share with each other?
Yeah, because most of the committees that people are sitting in are people from various types of utility companies. Okay. And I've noticed that the collaboration and the discussions are open because they're all facing the same challenges. So if they can learn from each other, help improve the grid and help improve, keeping the lights on, and we can be part of it, I think it's wonderful.
Excellent. Matt Carrara, thank you so much.
Thanks,
let's do this again next year, okay?
Every year.
Every year. Okay.